The Var Dominion had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had shattered fleets, burned civilizations, and brought entire species to their knees. When their Grand War Council met to discuss the impending extermination of humanity, they predicted a swift and absolute victory. 6 hours? The warlords declared, watching holographic simulations of human fleets being reduced to cosmic dust. They were wrong. Because in 7 minutes, their empire would cease to exist. The Var High Council chamber pulsed with an eerie blue glow, thousands of holographic projections floating in the air, each displaying a different scenario of Earth's impending destruction. The chamber was silent except for the deep, guttural voice of High Exarch Ctharis. 6 hours. The room remained still, absorbing the words as if they were prophecy. 6 hours and their defenses will collapse. 6 hours and their fleets will burn. 6 hours and the last human will kneel before the Dominion. A ripple of satisfaction passed through the council. The Var had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had reduced entire species to nothing more than historical footnotes. The humans would be no different. General Zavlon, his plated carapace gleaming under the council's luminescent glow, gave a dismissive wave of his claws. We waste time even discussing this. The humans are a defiant species, but defiance means nothing when faced with absolute superiority. Ctharis nodded, his reptilian eyes narrowing as he gestured to the war map before them. The 10,000-strong fleet of the Dominion was already en route, stretching across the vastness of space like a plague. Launch the invasion. The order sent a low tremor through the chamber. The Dominion's greatest armada surged forward, vanishing into hyperspace. The war was inevitable. The outcome was decided. They were wrong. The void beyond Jupiter churned as the Dominion fleet emerged, their ships blotting out the distant stars. They were war machines, planetary eradicators, each one built to tear through lesser civilizations like a blade through flesh. The humans had no such weapons. No such strength. At least, that was what the Dominion believed. Aboard the command ship, Ctharis leaned forward, his mandibles twitching as his crimson eyes locked onto the small, insignificant fleet before them. Pathetic. Humanity had sent barely a fraction of what any reasonable species would call an armada. Ctharis had expected desperation. He had expected last-minute chaos. Instead, the humans had positioned their forces with almost calculated indifference. A challenge without the force to back it. He turned to his weapons master. Fire upon their lead ships. Let them understand their mistake before we wipe them from history. Across the Dominion fleet, planet-killer cannons hummed with energy, each one locking onto their doomed targets. A moment of stillness. Then, nothing. A flicker in the void. A glitch in reality. The screens before Ctharis glowed with energy readings that made no sense. Report! Zavlon's voice came through the intercom, confusion creeping into his tone. Targets have vanished. Ctharis' head snapped toward the viewport. The human fleet was still there, except it wasn't. The targeting systems displayed millions of human warships, ships that should not exist, ships that should have been detected long before the battle had begun. This is impossible. And then the first 2,000 Dominion ships detonated. Ctharis barely had time to react before an unfamiliar voice crackled through the intercom, cold, composed, carrying the weight of inevitability. You thought this was war? A pause. No. This is extermination. The voice belonged to the human commander. Ares Reaper Draven. Panic rippled through the Dominion ranks. This was not how wars were fought. The Var had never faced phantom fleets, had never been outmaneuvered before their weapons could even fire. They were the predators. They were the inevitable. And yet their ships were dying. From the void, humanity struck, not with brute force, but with surgical precision. Railgun rounds, traveling at relativistic speeds, bypassed energy shields and ripped through command centers before the crews even realized they had been fired upon. Dominion cruisers folded in on themselves as tachyon artillery bent time, striking ships before they had even moved into position. Ctharis roared as another cluster of warships flickered out of existence, erased from the battle before they could even react. We are being hunted! One of the tactical officers shouted, the realization cutting through centuries of arrogance like a blade. Another explosion rocked the command ship. Ktharis staggered, claws digging into the metal railing. How are they doing this? No answer. Another voice, this time from one of the warlords stationed on the outer perimeter of the battle. We need to retreat. Cowards. Ktharis had never known fear. He had never known loss. But standing here, watching his armada collapse in minutes, he felt something unfamiliar slither into his gut. Dread. Hold your ground, he bellowed, but his voice was drowned beneath the cacophony of alarms. And then the final horror. One of the Heaven's Wrath cannons activated. A weapon that should not exist. A weapon that did not exist in any known military doctrine. A tear in reality itself. A singularity bloomed amidst the Dominion's ranks, and with it, the concept of space itself began to scream. Thousands of warships simply ceased. Their matter stretched and devoured. Their commanders erased before their final words could even be spoken. Ktharis fell into his seat, the chaos of the battle now nothing more than a silent void of loss. The once mighty Dominion was being systematically erased. Humanity had not come to fight. They had come to end them. The intercom crackled again, and the human commander's voice returned. High Exarch Ktharis. Silence. Ktharis knew he had no power left. No voice left. Draven's voice remained steady, unwavering. Your empire thought itself eternal. Thought it could conquer reality itself. Thought it could challenge us. A pause. Now your people will whisper one name across the stars. Ktharis forced himself to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. What name? A chuckle. Not of amusement, but of certainty. Humanity. The transmission ended. Ktharis felt his body go weightless as the command ship's alarms flashed a final warning. Event horizon detected. The last thing he saw was the collapse of space itself. The bridge was chaos. Officers scrambled between flickering holoscreens, their normally rigid formations broken by the sheer impossibility of what was happening. Ktharis' claws dug into the armrests of his command throne, his breathing ragged, his twin hearts pounding against his ribs. The battle had not lasted hours. It had not even lasted minutes. The Dominion fleet, 10,000 warships strong, was unraveling before his very eyes. Status report! His voice was a snarl, but there was no authority behind it anymore. He was not issuing a command. He was begging for an explanation. The weapon's master bared his fangs in frustration, the glow of the consoles reflecting in his widened eyes. They are. He hesitated, struggling to find the words. They are inside our systems. Every countermeasure, every failsafe, corrupted. Ktharis turned toward his tactical officer. Our fleet? What remains? The officer hesitated. High Exarch, we've lost 40% of our fleet. A tremor passed through Ktharis' body. That was impossible. A battle between empires was not decided in moments. A war, a real war, was an elegant sequence of stratagems, counters, positioning. They had rules. Protocols. The humans had ignored them. Another explosion rocked the bridge. Emergency lighting flickered. A voice crackled through the command channel. Hollow. Unshaken. Cold. 3 minutes. The entire bridge froze. Ktharis knew the voice now. The specter in the dark. The human. Ares Reaper Draven. Ktharis clenched his fists, his claws biting into his own flesh. Who are you? Static. Then. The one who decides if you live long enough to hear your people scream. Ktharis' mandibles clenched, rage breaking through the creeping horror. You cannot kill an empire. Draven's voice did not waver. You think I came to fight you? A silence so deep it felt like the void itself had swallowed the bridge. No. I came to erase you. The transmission cut. Ktharis shot up from his seat, a snarl ripping through his throat. Fire everything! Every cannon, every torpedo, every fighter we have. I want that ship. The view screen changed. It took Ctharis a moment to realize what he was seeing. The forward batteries of their own warships, turning inward. His mind refused to process it. What is this? The tactical officer's voice was hollow. High Exarch, our fleets, our ships are. He swallowed. They are locking weapons onto each other. A ripple of horror coursed through the bridge. The Dominion's own armada had turned against itself. No! Ctharis staggered backward. This isn't real. He looked around the bridge, expecting someone, anyone, to correct him, to offer an explanation that didn't end with his empire burning. The weapons master's voice came through, barely above a whisper. It's their AI warfare. Ctharis' vision blurred. They're controlling us? A single nod. A terrible silence settled over them. The Dominion had never lost control of its own fleets. A warning klaxon blared. Ctharis' voice cracked. What now? The tactical officer whispered. Our own dreadnoughts have just fired upon the flagship. Ctharis turned toward the viewport just in time to see the incoming projectiles. VAR-class Annihilation torpedoes, weapons designed to level entire continents. Fired from his own ships. Impact. The bridge shattered. Metal screamed as shockwaves ripped through the ship's hull. Fires erupted, panels burst apart in showers of sparks. Ctharis was thrown from his throne, slamming against the bulkhead with bone-cracking force. The high-pitched keening of decompression alarms filled the air. The Dominion flagship, the greatest warship ever built, was dying. Ctharis dragged himself upright, clawing at the console. His vision swam. Every display showed fire. Loss. Destruction. His empire was being undone, moment by moment. Another transmission crackled through the failing systems. You're still alive? Ctharis turned toward the sound, his breathing ragged. Face me. The screen flickered. And there he was. Draven. Human. At first glance, he did not appear remarkable. No grotesque enhancements, no monstrous cybernetic limbs. Just a man. But his eyes were war itself. Ctharis bared his fangs, snarling. You think this will end us? Draven's expression remained unreadable. It already has. Ctharis forced himself to his feet, bracing against the console. Humanity does not have the numbers. You do not have the forces to hold what you take. If you destroy us, the other empires will rise against you. Draven's lips curled into something that almost resembled a smirk. They already fear us. A pause. Then, do you know why? Ctharis didn't answer. Draven continued, voice low, steady. Because when we make war, we don't conquer. His eyes glowed in the dim light. We annihilate. A single command flashed across the Dominion's remaining fleet systems. Priority command, AI override, initiate final protocol. Ctharis' throat tightened. What have you done? The tactical officer's face went slack with horror. They've activated the self-destruct sequences. Ctharis stumbled back. No. That's impossible. Draven's voice was soft. Final. We don't need your empire. Ctharis' mouth opened, a desperate plea forming, for survival, for mercy, for anything. Wait. The first explosion detonated within the Dominion core. Then another. And another. Across the battle's remains, every surviving Dominion ship, every dreadnought, every war cruiser, all detonated in unison. The bridge ruptured. Ctharis' vision blurred as the atmosphere ripped itself away. His body went weightless, spiraling into the void. His arms flailed, his claws reaching for anything. The last thing he saw was Earth, distant, untouched. Laughing. The final thing he heard was Draven's voice. You should have killed us when you had the chance. Then, nothing. In the aftermath, the galaxy was silent. The Dominion was gone. 1,000 species turned their eyes toward Earth, and in their hearts, a single truth took root. Humanity did not wage war. It waged extinction. The silence of space was broken by the dying echoes of an empire. Ctharis had been wrong. The war had not lasted 6 hours. It had barely lasted 6 minutes. The Dominion fleet was shattered, its remnants burning against the vast emptiness of the void. The once invincible war machine of the Var Dominion had been reduced to wreckage, hollow husks of dreadnoughts, drifting without purpose, the shattered bones of an empire that had once believed itself eternal. The few surviving warlords screamed into their failing comms, desperate for orders that would never come. No reinforcements. No counteroffensive. No escape. One by one, their voices faded. Humanity had made sure of that. Ares Draven stood aboard the bridge of the Nemesis, eyes locked onto the battlefield. The enemy was broken. The Dominion's warships, once towering monuments of terror, were nothing but wreckage, their systems either hijacked or turned against them. His second-in-command, Admiral Rourke, stepped forward, his voice low. "What are your orders?" Draven didn't blink. "No survivors." Rourke hesitated. "Their remaining ships are defenseless. Some are trying to retreat." Draven's gaze flicked toward him. "A warning." Rourke swallowed. "Understood." The final stage of the operation began. No mercy. No negotiations. The humans had given the Dominion a chance, an unspoken offer to leave them in peace, to let the Sol system remain untouched. That offer had been ignored. Now, there would be no second chances. "Charge the Omega Array," Draven ordered. The Nemesis vibrated as the power of a planet killer hummed through its systems. A weapon built not to conquer, not to intimidate, but to erase. Across the Dominion wreckage, survivors scrambled. Warships, still functional but stripped of leadership, attempted to flee. Warlords barked desperate commands, but there was no structure left, no discipline. They were not warriors anymore. They were prey. Draven watched them run. He let them. For exactly 60 seconds. Then he gave the order. "Fire!" The void ignited. The Omega Array pulsed, a silent ripple of destruction that folded reality itself. The fabric of space twisted as entire war fleets ceased to exist, pulled apart by forces beyond comprehension. Where once there had been thousands, now there was only emptiness. Draven exhaled slowly. That was the end of the Var Dominion. But the mission was not over. "Broadcast the message," he ordered. A moment later, his voice was transmitted to every remaining Dominion frequency. His final warning. "This is Commander Ares Draven of the Human Unified Command." His voice was calm. "Absolute. You invaded our system. You came to exterminate us. You expected 6 hours. You were erased in 6 minutes. Silence. We are not conquerors. We are not diplomats. We are not here to negotiate terms." His next words carried the weight of 1,000 dead civilizations. "We are the abyss. We are the end." More silence. Then a single phrase. "Stay out of our skies." Transmission ended. A moment later, the last Dominion survivors activated their hyperdrives. They fled. Not regrouping. Not preparing a counterattack. Just running. Running as far from humanity as their failing ships would carry them. Draven watched them go. He let them live. Let them serve as the final warning to the galaxy. Rourke exhaled. "That was..." He hesitated, searching for the right word. "Total." Draven's expression didn't change. "This was justice." Rourke glanced at the wreckage, then back at him. "And what do we do now?" Draven turned from the viewport, his footsteps echoing against the steel floor. "We prepare." "For what?" Draven's voice was quiet. "For the next fools who think they can challenge us." The galaxy was silent. The Var Dominion, an empire that had once brought entire civilizations to their knees, no longer existed. What remained of their fleet had been erased, their homeworld burned, their warlords scattered. The name of their kind would be whispered only in warnings, a reminder of what happened when one dared to challenge humanity. Ares Draven stood at the heart of the Nemesis, watching the remnants of the battle dissolve into the void. The operation was complete. There was nothing left to salvage, no loose ends to tie. The Dominion had not been conquered. It had been erased. Admiral Rourke spoke beside him, voice measured, though there was an edge of something unreadable behind it. The last survivors have entered hyperspace. We track several escape routes, but they're spreading across the outer systems. They won't regroup. They won't retaliate. Draven didn't look away from the viewport. They'll tell the others. Rourke nodded. They already have. Galactic comms are flooded with distress signals. The entire network has gone quiet. No empire, no faction is sending a response. No one wants to be next. A long pause. The weight of victory hung in the air, heavier than any defeat. Rourke exhaled. So what now? Draven's fingers tapped against the console. Now we see who dares to test us next. Across the galaxy, rulers, warlords, and emperors sat frozen in their chambers, watching the footage of the battle. The war had been one-sided, a massacre that had rewritten the very concept of military engagement. Humanity had not just fought. It had outthought, outmaneuvered, and outmatched an empire that had ruled the stars for centuries. The Dominion had arrived expecting an easy victory. They had come with 10,000 warships, enough to crush any civilization beneath their heel. They had been destroyed in 7 minutes. One by one, the rulers of the galaxy deactivated their war councils. Strategic alliances shifted overnight. Expansion plans were abandoned. Even the most ambitious warlords hesitated. Humanity was no longer just another species. It was something far worse. Deep within the Sol system, in the classified depths of Earth's military command, Grand Marshal Ellison studied the reports with cold precision. The Dominion had been the first, but they would not be the last. Others would come. They always did. Ambition, greed, the endless thirst for power, it was universal. Draven's voice came through the secure channel. It's done. Ellison leaned back, expression unreadable. Losses? None. A beat of silence. Then Ellison smiled. Good. Draven didn't return it. They'll come again. Not today. Not tomorrow. But they'll come. Ellison exhaled. And we'll be waiting. Draven's voice remained steady. We're ready. The line went dead. Ellison looked back at the war map. The galaxy had shifted tonight. The balance of power had changed in ways no one could have anticipated. The future was uncertain. The threats would never stop. But one thing was now undeniable. Humanity did not lose wars. It ended them. The Dominion was gone. What remained of their warships had either been destroyed or scattered into the far reaches of the galaxy, reduced to terrified whispers of a species that had once ruled without fear. But there was no victory cry, no celebration aboard the Nemesis. This was not a war won, it was a lesson taught. A final, absolute statement written in the wreckage of an empire. Draven stood in the command center, watching the last Dominion signals blink out from the battlefield. They were running. Running like prey that had finally realized it was not the predator anymore. Admiral Rourke approached, his voice carrying the weight of something deeper than just orders. The cleanup teams report 0 hostile contacts left. The battlefield belongs to us. Draven didn't look away. It always did. Rourke hesitated, then spoke, quieter this time. This wasn't just a victory. This was a warning. Draven finally turned, eyes unreadable. That was the point. Rourke frowned. Then what happens when the next empire decides to test us? Draven's expression didn't change. Then we do this again. Rourke's jaw tensed, but he nodded. They both knew the truth, this wouldn't be the last time. The galaxy never learned. The comms console flashed. A secure transmission was coming through from High Command. Draven didn't need to check the source. He already knew who it was. He tapped the screen. Ellison's voice came through, calm and unshaken. It's over. Draven gave a short nod. Yes. Ellison didn't speak right away. There was a pause, the kind that carried weight. The Dominion was powerful, but they weren't the worst. Others will come. You understand that? Draven exhaled slowly. They'll come. Ellison leaned back in his chair, somewhere deep in Earth's war rooms, surrounded by maps of a galaxy that was still too foolish to fear the right enemy. You think they'll listen? Draven glanced at the fading wreckage, the last embers of an empire smothered under humanity's heel. They don't have to. A long silence. Then Ellison said what they were both thinking. This wasn't just war. This was extermination. Draven didn't blink. Good. Ellison studied him for a moment, then finally nodded. Prepare for redeployment. Debrief with intelligence. I want full analysis within the hour. Draven ended the call. Rourke exhaled beside him. So that's it. Draven's gaze flicked toward the viewport, toward the empty void where an empire had once believed itself invincible. That's it. For now.